Welcome back to the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. Today, we're honored to have André Rosa, president of Judo Global São Tomé and Príncipe, joining us once again. In our previous interview, André highlighted 4 standout judokas from various countries in the African Judo Union. In this episode, we'll reflect on the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, discussing the overall performance of African judo players and what it means for the future of the sport on the continent. We'll explore key lessons and takeaways for African judo athletes from their experience at the Games. We'll also look at how judo is developing in African countries post-Paris 2024, focusing on athlete preparation and participation in international competitions. Lastly, we'll discuss what changes or improvements are needed for African judokas to reach the next level and compete for medals in future Olympic cycles. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and follow the Combat Sports in Africa podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for all the latest updates. Now, let's jump into our conversation with André Rosa of Judo Global São Tomé and Príncipe.
All right, we are joined by André Rosa. André, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for this invitation. I am excited to talk about this amazing event we had, the Olympic Games.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for rejoining us again, of course. And for anyone who missed our previous episode, we did an interview with André where he talks about his top picks as far as African competitors at the Paris 2024 Games. This is a follow-up after the Games, a post-interview of sorts. Obviously, the Games have been finished for well over a month plus now, but I'm curious to hear André's opinion about, Africa and all the African countries, of course, because Africa is not a country, it's a continent made up of over 40, almost 50 plus countries. And André is going to share his opinion because he's actually on the continent of Africa. And I am not, in case you haven't figured out, I'm not located in Africa. I'm located in Canada, but I'm a fan of combat sports globally, including African combat sports. But let's dive right into it, André. I have a big question for you, a 2-part question. I'll ask you the first one. Looking back at the Paris 2024 Olympics, how would you assess the overall performance of African judo players?
Okay, so that's a good question. So first of all, I would love to talk about the participation of our athletes from São Tomé and Príncipe. As you know, this was the first time we had someone representing our country in judo in the Olympic Games, and I couldn't be more proud of the match he had. He fought really well. He went against the German player in the under 73 kilos. The German player is an amazing athlete. He was 5th in the World Championships, and our athletes competed really well. But the overall participation of the African athletes, well, there was not so many matches with the victories for these athletes. Although it's always good to be in a place like this to understand what we can do better next time. But I would say that the results itself wasn't that good. But always the aim of the competition for me is always to understand where we are and what we can do to improve and to be better.
Very interesting. I think we'll follow up on that point later on, what you just said there about what to improve, because it's a very key point and a theme, I think, for any country competing here. The second part of the question that I ask is probably open to criticism, because when I think about it, like I drafted these questions, and now that I reread them, I'm like, is this question even fair? So I'm going to pose it, and then I'm going to ask you a question about this question. The question is, what does this mean for the future of the sport on the continent? I'm I'm curious to know, like, as I'm rereading this myself, I'm thinking, is this question a fair question to ask, especially for sports continentally, for African sports, or for African judo that is continentally in Africa? Is this question fair to ask? What does this mean for the future of the sport on the continent? And I ask that because, would I be asking someone in Europe that question, or someone in Asia? Would I be asking them in Japan? What does this Paris 2024 mean for the future of the sport in Japan? Or what does this mean for the future of the sport in
Canada.
Germany or Canada? That's right. Is this a fair question for me to ask, or is it or am I being maybe biased? Or what are your thoughts on the question, I guess, from a critical lens?
Hmm. So, of course, to have good results in a sport like judo is very complex and depends in a lot of variabilities. Although with these results, I believe a lot of countries, because we work a little bit in an individual level. Like each country has his own aims and his own goals, and I think some countries want to have a better results. We had already medals in the Olympics in previous editions for African countries, and I believe these countries want to go back to the podium as they did in the past. In terms of, I think some things will change. I believe some things will change, but the biggest change that could happen, for instance, in our country, would be to have more investment from the government. I believe in a country like ours, like São Tomé and Príncipe, where sometimes people are not very happy with the future, or with a lot of hope of their future. It's good to have examples like sportsmen, like athletes that show success in the world stage, to make the people to believe that it's possible to have a better future. In other fields of life, it's possible to have these examples as well, like in music, in the artistic level too. But I think one particular importance that I can see to invest in the sports is to have good role models for the youth, to see that if we believe, if we put the work, if we invest in one goal, we can achieve it. So if the government in our country, um, I understand they want to invest more in the sports. They want to invest more in the individual sports, since we are a small country. So I believe with the small changes, we can do a lot of improvements. In the other countries, well, it's difficult to tell, but I believe in the North African countries, some have already medals in the Olympic Games, and I believe they want to go back to the podium as they did in previous editions.
Very interesting. I think when we look at the North African versus Sub-Saharan African countries, there's obviously, it's fair to say there is a gap maybe in terms of overall participation and performance. I should have the stats and the numbers. I don't at the moment to share, but it seems that just going on what I've observed, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that their judo program is certainly more active as far as the numbers of participants that we see at continental level tournaments in Africa and international ones. The point you make about, youth seeing success stories locally from their country, it does have an impact anywhere in the world, right? When you see an athlete representing your country, your part of the world, making it to the podium. Um, for example, like there's the boxer from Cape Verde. which
Exactly.
I'm always mispronouncing that country's name, but you can correct me on that pronunciation. I'm speaking about Daniel Varela de Pina, who's a boxer,
Exactly.
captured the bronze medal. We saw his obviously he's an international star and he put his country on the map. And more importantly, I think he highlighted his sport and the potential of his sport in his country. He trains out of Portugal, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. But no, it's important for sure, and I think it's great for. And I'm glad you mentioned the point about success in different ways. Obviously, there's success in the artistic milieu. There's success in everything, right? From the arts, from the academics, but in sport, obviously through judo, there's a lot of potential. And for those who are not familiar with your work, please tell us where can we follow you on social media, because we follow you, I follow you, and I see a lot of the great sports development judo work that you and the brand have implemented there, and it's really I'm a fan of it, quite frankly. It's really cool, and we see the engagement from the youth, and we see um developing athletes at a very young age, getting them involved in the sport at a very young age. I'm not saying that getting them involved later on in life in their 20s and 30s is not worth it, but obviously it is worth it at all ages for any sport. But especially, I think, down the road for future competitors, for those who have ambitions to compete internationally, it's great to see youth involvement at a very young age. So where can people find your content on social media?
So thank you for your words. We on Instagram you can type Judo Global _ STP. We tend to post almost daily with some updates from our project. And yeah, I believe we want to have the opportunity to everybody to do judo, from the young age to adults to elderly as well. We believe there's a lot of potential in the sport to make people to have a better well-being, to have a better life. And we try to verticalize all the practice of judo, to have the opportunity to everyone to join us to practice judo. And yeah, we focus a lot in the youth. We focus in our instructors as well to implement our methodology. We believe it's a good way to grow the sport is to train more instructors to teach judo. So with more instructors, we can have more practitioners. We can give the opportunity to more people to join the sport. And this is our focus: is to make this sport to grow, and more than this, to make the lives of the people that join our sports better. And we believe we have this potential in judo, in other sports as well, but my passion is in judo. So, and that's what I know. I believe I have some knowledge to develop. So that's my focus.
It's great that you're applying, your subject matter expertise. Obviously, as you mentioned, is judo, and you're sharing that with the world. Obviously, that's what gifts are for, right? It's they're to be shared with the world, and you're doing that. Speaking of which, in terms of key lessons or takeaways for African judo athletes at these games, speak to us about your athlete in particular. And I know you mentioned he fought a German, Igor Wantke, I believe his name. I'm mispronouncing his last name. I apologize. That who got beat by a Canadian after he beat the Santome player. But speak to us about
Exactly.
some key takeaways for this particular athlete of yours, the Oliveira, and then, if possible, speak about other African athletes that you were following at the games, if you
Mhm.
don't mind. What are some of the lessons learned?
Exactly. So for our athletes, we need since I know him since the first day he joined judo. He joined judo here on the island where I live in on Principe Island. He was one of the first students I had here to practice judo, and he has a very he's a great character. So always wanted to join uh, positive things in his life, to join all the opportunities he has to for development, always to give his contribution to different projects in different areas. So with a lot of modesty, a very humble person. So he started doing judo here, and then when he went to São Tomé to continue his study, he never gave up. Although during that time the judo in São Tomé was not as developed as here on Prince Island, he continued. He tried to give his contribution in São Tomé too, coaching some kids too there. So always being connected to judo. And then 1 year after that, or two, I don't remember exactly, he went to Portugal. And as soon as he arrived in Portugal, he showed the intention to continue to practice judo. And with the connections I have with Portugal, I found a place for him to continue his journey in Portugal. The first competition he did in Portugal was a local competition. He won, and this was a good sign for us, and a good and this opened a lot of doors to him, because we could argument that he has the level to be the first representative of São Tomé and Príncipe in an international competition. So his journey in the international competitions was in January of 2023. So short period to prepare for the games. Of course, we know all the limitations. We know in which part of the process he was back then. We knew there was a lot to do to develop his level in only 1 year and a half. But although he had the courage to continue, although we hadn't, he struggled a little bit from a financial perspective, working 8 hours a day or more, and then training. It's not easy. When we were closer to the games, he needed to move from the town he was to the capital, Lisbon, and we didn't know if he would go to the Olympics or not. So in June or May, I think in May of this year, he moved from the town he was to Lisbon to train more, to have more conditions for training. Although he needed to abandon the job he had, so he struggled financially to to improve his level, to find better training conditions. And then when we knew that he was going to the games, we were very happy. He could find a job in Lisbon to improve his financial conditions, and could maintain his working level in terms of judo. And the level he presented in the games was much better than we saw before in the other competitions. His stamina was much better. His grips game was much better. The courage he showed, all the intention to follow the plan we had. I was very proud to watch him fight in the Olympics, and this makes us believe that with the work, with the strategy, with the opportunities, we can do much better. And all the all the positive things goes to Holdinay, that had this challenge and has accepted this challenge uh, without knowing what exactly was what was going to happen, and he did an amazing job. I'm very proud of him.
You mentioned the courage to continue, and I'm glad that you opened that door on the theme of courage to continue, because there's struggle for anyone involved in these sports as amateur athletes, as you mentioned, the financial hurdles and the struggles. I'll step back and I'll just say, from my understanding of having interviewed various amateur athletes, judo players, worldwide, etc., and other sports, that's a recurring theme, is just how hard it is, obviously physically, mentally, spiritually, but also financially. And obviously, it varies globally, right? When you look at athletes, whether they're in Asia, Europe, Africa, and North America, but the recurring theme is financial struggle, because some of these athletes do have a full-time job, right? They work 8 hours a day. They're putting in the work for a living, but also the work on the mats, respectively, in their sport. He's only 24 years old. He fights in the under 73 kilo, the division. And you mentioned that he had the courage to carry on. How important is that, having that courage to carry on, and as opposed to throwing in the towel, as they say, that expression of just bowing out and giving up? And how do you teach that to people? Does that come with their hardware or their software, or is that something that could be encouraged? Because I'm going off on a rant here. I apologize, but like it's a recurring theme that I see, because we don't know athletes' full lives, right? There's so much more to their lives than their sport, you know, and there are boundaries as to how much we need to know. But sometimes we hear a little bit about their struggle, and you're like, my God, like look at this person with all this struggle they're carrying on their shoulder, yet they still have the courage to continue on in their passion, and which is their sport. I would imagine, how important is that characteristic?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only way to have people competing in a high level, is to have people that continue practicing. So, for instance, normally the peak performance in judo is in between 26, 27 years old. Some people have the peak a little bit later. Some people that have the peak a little bit sooner, and with the risk of injuries, with the in this age, 26, between 26 and 28, is difficult to have people doing something in an amateur level, because it's the age where we normally want to start a family. It's the age we sometimes we need to earn some money. So in other sports, when you have the peak sooner, the athletes can plan their lives to practice sports until 20 years old or 21 years old, while, for instance, they are studying or something like that. And after that, they will have another career in another level. In judo, having the peak this late is difficult sometimes to create the path for the athletes to continue practicing judo. And this is, I would say, this is the struggle we have, and this is a challenge we have, and that we want to create a path for people to continue to practice judo, for them to have their potential achieved. So, for in this case specifically, we are always trying to create the conditions for for holding A to continue practicing judo. His motivation sometimes is he has his own, and his software or hardware programmed well since the beginning. But as a federation, as a friend, as a coach, as a president of the federation, we want to understand what's what's the role that judo have in our athletes' lives. And for Holinay, he is very proud to represent São Tomé and Príncipe. He's very proud to be the first to represent our country in different competitions, like in the Olympics, for instance. He likes to have this patriotic motivation to carry the flag in different stages. So, but we always need to understand how can we adapt his life to for him to have the conditions to have some comfort, to have his money to continue and to practice judo at the same time. Sometimes this is difficult to find, but with Holinay, we have someone that it's compromised to fight for a better life with us together. So that's the courage he shows. He although sometimes we don't know what is going to happen, he is there to continue, and he believes we are together. We can do a better job to develop the judo, to have more people practicing judo, to have better conditions for the ones that comes after us. So that's what I feel from Holinay. He is compromised to make things better, not only for him but for the future too.
Will we see him potentially at the Los Angeles 2028 games? Like, is that part of his vision? Does he see that? Is he aiming for that goal? Pardon?
Yes,
Oh wow. Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, and I believe he will be much better there than he is now. We have now we with this experience, this changes a lot in the mindset the athletes have, and now I believe he understands the works that need to be behind a good performance. So I believe in 2028 in Los Angeles, if he can go to the Olympics, he will be much better prepared.
Fantastic. It's funny, I must say, initially I told Andre, hey, Andre, I need about 20 to 30 minutes of your time for this interview. We're already, I believe, 30 minutes into it, and I'm barely halfway through. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this conversation, and I hope you can stay on for a bit more because I have a
Yeah.
couple of more questions for you. I want us to focus on another player from the continent of Africa, in particular, Belkadi. I know you highlighted her in our previous episode as someone with a lot of potential at the games. What did you think of her? I'm assuming you watched all of her fights at the game. She had two. Um, what did you think about her performance generally
Well, the match the first match, it was a very difficult match
against
against the Barrios from
Barrios? Yeah.
Venezuela.
Hmm.
She's very strong, and to be able to win this match, I think this is an amazing achievement.
Big time.
Well, although I couldn't watch this match particularly, as you know, the broadcast of the Olympics is quite special compared to the other competitions, the other judo competitions where we can watch the match on demand.
Right.
But this was a very difficult match for sure to win against such a strong fighter as Barrios. But maybe you can tell me more.
Right.
Particularly this fight, I couldn't watch.
I'll be honest with you. I watched as much as I could. Obviously, I caught both of her matches. I watched so many matches as what was available. Obviously, because some matches were not fully available, as you described. The broadcast was somewhat selective here as well, and I caught her match against the Venezuelan Barrios, and she won. I couldn't tell you how she won. She got the Wazari. Yeah, I don't remember the throw. When you watch so many matches, and it was such an emotionally charged Olympics that, in all
Yeah.
honesty, I don't think I've recovered from watching the games. It was such an overwhelming. I'm speaking purely as a fan. If anyone is listening to this, you have to understand. I'm speaking as purely as a fan of the sport. I'm not a subject matter expert by any means. I'm just a fan, and it's such. I find this sport vis-a-vis other sport, and this is just my opinion here, folks. Like I love MMA. I enjoy watching boxing. I appreciate, Greco and freestyle wrestling and so on. I could go on, but I find this sport in particular, for me personally, to be the toughest and the most overall dynamic and entertaining sport to watch. And I use that word entertaining loosely here. I'm not saying it's sports entertainment, although I appreciate sports
Hmm.
entertainment as well. I just think it is the most globally competitive sport out there. And when I say that to people here in North America and in Canada, where
Yeah.
I am, they look at me like I'm crazy. But but
Exactly.
but that's a different story. All I can say is that watching the Paris 2024 games and the amount of content that I watched, it was overwhelming, I must admit.
Yeah.
And I think I have some short-term memory loss, in all honesty, because it was that intense and it was that captivating. Her second match against Leski was a very interesting one. And
Hmm.
she did lose this match. I believe she did score. She did score a point. Well, Wazari, that is not a full point, but there were moments in this match where it was within her grips. I mean, it was
Okay.
within her reach to win this match and to beat Leski, who went on to capture the gold in a very dominant fashion,
Exactly.
like a beast. The Slovenian athlete, like she's a powerhouse. Obviously, you've seen the highlights. She went on
Hmm.
she went on to beat Barrios, to beat Bushman Pinar from Canada, which I was cheering for Bushman Pinar, because she's an
Exactly.
incredible fighter, and really really incredible on the ground to watch. I'm not just saying that because I'm cheering for the Canadians. I genuinely think the Canadian team has an incredible, diverse, range of athletes, and yes, I cheer for them, but I also cheer for others who put on a great effort and performance. Shileski went on to beat Clarisse in France, and she moves
Hmm.
on into the finals against the Mexican Awita Alcaraz. But I'll just say, going back to Belcari, I mean, what a performance by her in the round of 16 against Leski. There was a
Exactly.
moment where it was within her grip, like within her reach. And
Hmm.
I guess the question I'm asking is, as a coach, Andre, how do you celebrate someone's effort? Because she put on a hell of a fight, as you mentioned. She beat Barrios, and she moved on to almost beating Lasky, but she did lose. So how does one process this journey when they lose, but they came so damn close? Because unfortunately, it's going to be
Exactly.
in her mind for forever.
Exactly. Yeah, I believe. I believe that's difficult to manage for sure. Although the perspective in competition, I think I already mentioned this, is to focus on the path, what we are doing here, what we are doing with our lives, and the contribution we want to give to society. Well, in competitions, of course, like the Olympic Games that only happen uh, in 4 years, we put a lot of energy to have our best performance, and sometimes feeling that we have the success in our hands, and to lose it must be difficult to digest. Although I believe the focus in of the coach and is to pass to the athletes that we are in our lives is a path, and what we can learn and what we can do in this path is the most important things. And if we can contribute to something bigger than ourselves, it's the best thing we can do with our lives. So yeah, so the focus must be on the task, what we did well, what we can improve. Belkadi is not as young, but even then, what she can learn from with this for her life. That's what I believe sports have a good potential is for self development, and with the elder athletes, that's what we can focus. What are you learning from here that we then can implement in your future, in your career, where what you want to do. So probably very difficult to digest a loss like this, but although the focus must be in the path. Uh, that's what I believe. Sometimes difficult to implement, but in the theory, I would say is this focus in your path.
And it's always interesting to highlight the journey for some of these athletes. It's we have to look at their entire career as a whole, and their achievements in that journey as well too. Making it qualifying for the Olympics for her was quite a journey, as it was for any athlete. And I think because the whole world was watching, the entire world was watching these games, and
Exactly.
we were inundated with so much content from all these sports, all these athletes, and sometimes we don't focus on the ones who don't make the podium for a variety of obvious reasons. But I think we should too, because they also have a story, and they put on their best effort while the whole world was watching. Now, Andre, I'm going to move on from the African athletes and just ask
Mhm.
you a more broad, excuse me, a broader question in terms of just the overall Paris 2024 games when it comes to judo. What did you think of other competitors from Europe, from North and South America, and from Asia, and overall, what was your favorite match or your favorite story? What comes to
Mhm.
mind beyond obviously your own athletes from your
Exactly.
country, but
Well, for me, the best match was the final of the 90 kilos between Bekauri and Murao. Bekauri from Georgia and Murao from Japan. This was an amazing match. So during the event, we could hear some criticism on the rule sets. A lot of matches. Some people were criticizing how so many matches were won with Judo or Sokomake. And then we had this match between Bekauri and Murao that almost had like five weapons in total, if this was possible. So very, very good attacks, very good throws with Vazaris, with it was an amazing match. This match for me was probably the best in the competition. The the way both athletes could manage to throw the opponent and to manage to find a solution in a such tactical match, because the final of an Olympic Games is always very tactical, but they could manage to find ways to throw the other athlete, and this one for me was my favorite. A big surprise was the Mexican that you mentioned before, Priska Alcaraz, and her father is from Kenya actually, so she had some African ancestry. So this she was a surprise for me. I This was not the first time she had a good result, but although to manage to go to the final of the Olympic Games was a surprise. And she used to fight for Great Britain, and then her mother is from Mexico and her father is from Kenya, and then she started to represent Mexico. And she has an amazing judo level, very nice techniques, tomoe-nage, very beautiful throws. And it was amazing how she could manage to go to the final. This, for me, this was a surprise, and I want to congratulate her for this achievement. But I would highlight these two points: the final of the 90 kilos and the Mexican athletes, Prisca Awit Alcaraz.
Yeah, she certainly had a huge moment as you described, and I think there was a Juji Gatame, a very spectacular finish for her, and the highlight reels are certainly available for anyone who's missed
Mhm.
both of those matches you speak of, and the athletes. No, it's you're right. There was a ton of great moments, and yeah, I think Paris 2024 was certainly what the world needed. Just the engagement from the fans on site, just the energy you could feel, even as you were watching, you could, I wasn't there, you weren't there, but I'm sure you could feel the energy from the crowd
Mhm.
through the transmission of the broadcast of the entire judo portion. I think it took over the games. Andre, one last question for you now. We've got the juniors world championships happening very soon, October 2nd to the 5th. Speak to us about this world championships, particularly at the junior level. There's 67 nations partaking. There's a bunch of young African competitors, obviously partaking in this. There's 539 judoka in total. How important is it to develop juniors and have them compete here at the World Championships?
Exactly. Um, yeah, this world junior worlds will be amazing. In a country like Tajikistan, when there's a lot of supporters, we had I think a grand slam before the Olympic Games, and the crowd was amazing. They were like crazy for judo. So it's a good stage for a junior world championship. In terms of the development of our athletes, of the athletes in general, it's what I was saying before, to create a path to achieve what we want. So to have international participations and competitions for juniors is very important to develop the level of the athletes before they go to the senior level. So as we know, you mentioned before, the judo level internationally is very high. uh, the competitors it's very difficult in judo to achieve good competition results, and to create a path for the athletes from the young age to the world stage is difficult to do. And to and so it's very important for the juniors to compete internationally, so they can learn more, they can compete better, they can understand how the level is in the international stage, and this is the only way to make them to achieve a better level in the senior, when they get to the seniors, to over 21 years old competitions. So the world championships, for juniors, I will be watching, especially the Portuguese athletes. So Fabia Conceição. She got the bronze medal in the European Junior Championship, and her parents are from São Tomé and Príncipe. So I will be cheering for her to have a good result for sure.
Very cool, very cool. A question for you: When are athletes from San Tome and Principe going to be competing at the next tournament in Africa? Is that already planned? Can you give us any hints as to what we can
Exactly.
expect?
So yeah, we are planning now the next year. So this year we will not have any international participation. But in 2025 we are planning now to have that. So we will go to Luanda for sure, to the Luanda Open, and then we will have the African Cadets and Juniors Championships in Luanda too. So since we have a good relationship with the federation from Angola, we will be there for sure. And another thing that we want to achieve is to have someone in the seniors world championships. For this, we must have an athlete on the top 100 of the world. This is difficult, but we aim to achieve that. So we will have more African Opens participations and Grand Prix and Grand Slam too, to achieve points to have someone participating in the World Championships.
André, Rosa, thank you very much for always sharing your perspective and your insight. I appreciate as a listener. It's always great to hear from you and your position and perspective on various issues in sport in Africa and beyond. I know this is a post Paris 2024 Olympics, but I'm hoping to keep bringing you on, for future episode. Just as long as you're willing to share. I hope it's you're not annoyed with all these questions, but thank you very much. I do appreciate your time and always your input.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk with you, and hope you and the other listeners enjoy what I have to share. For me, it's always good to talk about judo, to talk about development. So I am open to do this more and more times, yeah, with you especially.
Awesome. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a wonderful day.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. We hope you enjoyed this interview conducted by Garmami with André Rosa of Judo Global São Tomé and Príncipe. Until next time, stay passionate about combat sports in Africa.